Hello, everyone, and welcome to Build. Our next guest is country star Brett Young, who has a lot going on, to say the least. We've got news of a new album, new music, new tour, award show nominations, the whole kit and caboodle. Thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You have gotten to do the fun thing over the last handful of days of rolling out a lot of really fun news. Ticket to LA is obviously the biggest news. We've got an album coming December 7th. What is it like? I mean, aside from that, you're planning a wedding. You've got a tour that you're now eyeing. You know, you're standing in the middle of this storm. Is it like, how do I catch my breath? Or is it just running full steam ahead?
It's both of those things. I mean, you're planning a wedding too, so you know it's a lot. And working in a business where there's no real Monday through Friday 9 to 5, it's hard to be on top of everything. But I think, I say this all the time. I don't know if I'm trying to convince other people or myself, but busy is definitely a blessing. Having a new single out, new record coming, it's all super exciting. We're out on tour with Thomas Rhett right now too, so life is good.
Good. I want to talk about the new single here tonight. It's a little bit different. I mean, it's definitely different than Mercy. It's a way more up-tempo, very airy. It's a perfect way to end summer. Tell me about writing it, or why maybe now is the time to mix up the sound.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we kind of got away with one with the first record. I hesitate to say it that way, but as a new artist in country music, it's unlikely that you can come with as many ballads and down-tempo songs as we did. And we just kept trying to pick what we thought the right song was, regardless of formula. And I think we kind of squeaked through with those four. And so, there was plenty of tempo on the first record. We just didn't.
I don't think anybody ever gets lucky 4 times.
Well, maybe 3 of them.
Okay.
In writing this second record, I'm obviously in a different place in my life. Me and my fiance had broken up when I wrote the first record, and we were on a break. And so there's a lot of sadness in a lot of songs like Mercy. And we're obviously very happy and back together, and that's going to affect the songwriting. But also, not just topically, as a songwriter, it affects kind of like the type of song you want to write too. And so that affects feel and vibe and tempo and all of that. And so with this one, it was just the first opportunity I had to write with Charles Kelly from Lady Antebellum. And I had my friends Ben Caver and Justin Ebach out. Justin Ebach actually wrote On Sleep Without You, my first single. And when the topic of this song came up, we immediately knew we wanted to write that song about those moments in your life that, you're lucky enough to be present in that moment and realize while you're living it that it's as good of a moment as it is, and wish that it could last forever. And so because we know, not everybody's lucky enough to have moments like that in their life, but if you have been, we wanted to make sure people could make it their story. And so we, I hate to use the word vague, but we kept it intentionally vague so that anybody could make it their story. And then, we knew that End of the Summer was the right time to come with some pure tempo. And so it just felt like the right song.
You toured with Lady Antebellum previously. Is that how you guys became songwriting buddies, or how do you and Charles sort of know each other?
Yeah, so that's exactly how. I had brought Ben and Justin out to write with me while I was on tour with Lady A last summer. And anybody that knows Charles knows that this is his personality, but he saw us eating lunch and catering, and he just walked up and he said, "Are you guys out to write this weekend?" And they said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I want to write with you."
Amazing.
And we went, well,
no.
we're big fans, so absolutely yes. And so that was the first time we wrote together. And me and Charles have become buddies. Me and all the Lady A, they're just the best. And so, we wrote a handful of times with Charles after that, and it's awesome that the first one is the one that became the first single.
Do you know at this point in your career and how long you've been writing songs when you're going to have a good songwriting partnership with someone? Is there something you look for in a creative partner?
I would say yes, except for the fact that for the most part, I'd say 80% of the time, there is a formula and there's a personality and that you're going to vibe well with in a writer's room, but it doesn't always pan out the way you would think. There are people that I was dying to get in a room with because I love every song they've ever written, but then we, as writing partners, don't write that well together. Maybe, we have conflicting ideas and we're both very stubborn or whatever it may be. So there is a little bit of a formula, but what's so funny is because I had written with just about everybody in Nashville for the first record, I was able to kind of narrow down a handful of writers that I already know that I've written with, so I know that I write well with. And so for the second record, I was very strict. I wrote with the people I knew that, we were going to turn out something I was proud of every single time.
I'm also curious because when you were doing the first record, no one really expected that much of it. There was no pressure. When you come into this one, it's on the heels of so many number ones, huge tours, a lot of people saying your name. Was that in your head at all? Like, I need to keep it the same just so that I don't start thinking, like, what do people want from me? How do I deal with this?
Yeah, what's so funny is it's the opposite of what people think. I get the question all the time. Now that you've had a little success, is the pressure off for the second record? Exact opposite. Especially like the athlete in me, it's 100% unrealistic that we went 4 for 4 number ones with the first record. You can't keep that streak going. It just doesn't work that way. But the athlete in me really wants to. So, you know, we didn't just have riders out that weekend with Charles. I had riders out almost every weekend for over like 53 U.S. dates last summer, trying to make sure that this album was as good as it can be. And so I don't know that we stuck with the same formula from the first record. I think the only thing that really was similar is that I was intent on writing as much as I could, so we had as many songs to choose from as we could.
What is the feeling when you're putting out something that is, you know, very noticeably different than what has succeeded? Was it nerves? Were you checking, you know, Twitter to see what people were saying, how they're responding to it?
You know, that's kind of back to your last question as well. I think anybody who knows me knows I'm obsessed with Gavin DeGraw, and years ago he was giving me advice. I was just starting to make like little, you know, 5-song EP demos in an apartment, and he said, well, here's one thing you want to do with every record. You want to keep it similar enough to your last record, so any fans that you earned with that one don't feel alienated or like you've gone too far left or right so that they don't enjoy the music anymore. But also you got to change it enough so that they're not bored and you can gain a new fan base too. And so
sounds super easy.
I know, right? Just do all the things. And so with this second record, I think it was obviously, you know, we knew we needed to come with tempo. And there was, again, plenty of tempo to choose from this batch of songs too. This one just felt right because of the end, you know, end of summer and this kind of like feel-good love story. But the other thing that we decided to change, it wasn't a social media thing so much as I just got with my producer, Dan Huff, and we just said, you know, just musically, what can we change very subtly that will make this record feel different but the same? And, you know, Dan's a genius, and I love him to death, and his thing was, he's like, it's strange but interesting that you grew up surfing in Southern California and the two types of music you listened to were like R&B and soul music and country. And he goes, so we're doing country records. Let's incorporate a little bit of that soul music background. And just musically, there's if you listen, you can hear there's this underlying stuff that is all Dan Huff. And even if you don't realize you're hearing it. And so I think that was our goal, was to stay similar enough, but tweak it so that we might be able to grab a few new fans.
I have to say, from listening to what I've heard of this record, I also noticed a little bit more of a soul flavor, and I wondered if some of, you know, growing up in a religious household, if some of that was church music coming into play, you know, a little bit of gospel, a little bit of soul really coming through on some of these songs.
Yeah, there's a lot of the church background there. Absolutely. Gospel played a big part in me figuring out how much I love soul music, but also, you know, it's funny. My parents, you know, those people that like, they have really good taste in music, but they don't have a musical bone in their body, so it's just like a happy accident that they pick good music to listen to. That was, I mean, my parents are, and I wouldn't say they don't have a musical bone in their body, because my mom and dad led worship at my dad's church, like a cappella, before there was a band when the church was smaller. But for them to be, you know, putting on Otis Redding and Gary Puckett and Union Gap, and you know, their song was B.J. Thomas, Hooked on a Feeling. That's the kind of music I grew up listening to at home. So I think it's interesting that that's what they played all the time. But for me, it was a huge influence on, you know, the brand of country music that I brought from California when I moved to Nashville.
I also think it has a huge influence on you as a performer. You know, you did grow up watching them lead and see a crowd and sort of get up in front of people. Is that who you were channeling during early performances, trying to like take that confidence forward?
You know what's funny is I always said, watching my dad every Sunday, I always said I could never do that. You could go put me out when I played baseball, put me on a field in front of 40,000 people and I'm fine. That's my comfort zone. If I'm holding a baseball, they'll put me in front of like 18 people and give me a guitar and I'm like, eesh. But yeah, I think part of watching my dad do that and how comfortable he was, I think it made my transition faster probably. I didn't want to be the son of a like public speaker and then not be able to go do that. And so there was a lot of just determination there. But, you know, I think the other thing was just playing and singing in front of my high school peers at a Christian school. I think I had already kind of, even though it was super uncomfortable and I wasn't very good at it, I had done it. So it was, I think all of that stuff made the transition quicker for me.
Now that it's like working out, you know, that you've had number ones, the tours are getting bigger, this is happening. Do you think about those high school performances and you're just kind of dumbfounded, like, there's no way that this could have worked out?
Oh yeah, I had no business being up there. Like when I think back, I think about this one time, and it wasn't even leading worship at my high school. It was one of the midweek Bible studies that I would do at my buddy's house. I would lead worship, and he would teach. And I just think about this one song that I started in like way the wrong key, and I'd already started it, and about like 3 lines in, I realized there's no way when we get to this chorus I can get anywhere close to these notes. And then what do? Do you stop? And you like I've done this long enough now that I would actually just stop and be like, that was silly. Let's start that over. But at the time I was like, figure something out before you get there. And it got there, and there was notes that I didn't even get close to. And my voice cracked, and it was terrible. And I think back on that now, and I'm like, whoa, that's a terrible beginning to this career, you know. But stories like that are fun too. So yeah, it's interesting to see, you know, the path that music took in my life and how long it took to get here and all the kind of detours on the way, but it's all good stuff.
You mentioned Dan Huff. I love a lot of the work he's done, and I think it's like an understatement to say he has worked with literally everyone. What works in your partnership? I mean, he can be a studio master. He does not go in and just sort of like let you do it your way. He has an influence and he has a point of view.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about Dan that makes him as brilliant as he is if anybody has the right to be completely dogmatic and like do it their way because they've earned the right to do it their way, it's him. And he's not that at all. Right. At every single turn, even with my first record, when I almost didn't want to do my first record with Dan because it was like, who am I that he would want to spend the time and energy on my record? And from every turn from the very beginning, it was, with everything he did, are you happy with this? Are you okay with this? The one change I asked for on the whole first record was just the acoustic guitar part at the very beginning of In Case You Didn't Know. And I thought he was going to be like, you're wrong, what I did was right. And he goes, oh, okay, cool. And 15 minutes later, he sent me a different option, and it's what's on the record. So the fact that he wants me to be happy, and the fact that it's a working relationship, and it's not, you wrote the song, now let me produce the song. It's like we work together. And that actually allows me to, because I know that I have that, like he will work with me, I actually just stay out of his way. Way more than if I thought, you know, he had his kind of thumb on me, I would kind of probably have my head over his shoulder. But now it's like, well, if there's anything I don't like, he's already proven that he'll revisit it with me. So I think it's just his humility and his desire to make the artist happy that makes him as brilliant as he is.
That's awesome. We have to talk about Gavin DeGraw because he is actually on this record. You've got him on a song. What was it like? Did you just hit him up? I mean, at this point, you guys obviously have a relationship. It's not so much that you just listen to all of his music. You guys have performed together. You're good friends. Do you just text him and say, I could really use you in the studio? You
know, Gavin's the one person that, because I've been so obsessed with his music for so long, that when I started to develop a friendship with him like 10 years ago, I put this block in my head of don't mix business and pleasure. Don't ruin the friendship by making him think that you're really just trying to get into the business side of things with him. And it wasn't till like the last year and a half, and we really have been friends for about 10 years now, but the last year and a half, now that we both live in Nashville and we had a little time off the road, so we started hanging out more and more, that it happened kind of organically. He started asking me, what's up with the second record? Then I said, well, now that you mention it, me and Ross Copperman, who's a huge writer-producer in Nashville, I just found out he is as obsessed with Gavin as I am. And I was like, me and Ross really want to write a song with you for this record. And Gavin's one thing was like, he was immediately a yes. But he was like, but if we do that, I keep hearing you say you need to write the song that isn't about a girl, like your life story, the life song. And he goes, I'll do it, but I want to write your life story. I said, I'll write any song you want if you come write a song with us. So it worked out perfectly that, you know, we weren't writing it with the idea of featuring Gavin on it. I just wanted to write it with him. But the way that my story plays out and lands on music, his story landed on music too. And so it just worked out to have him on the third verse and sing it with me. And so I not only got to write with my idol, but he's singing on the record too.
Is there anything that surprised you about him as a collaborator, as opposed to somebody who you just know and someone you've listened to, you know, about actually being in the room and trading verses and ideas and song-like concepts?
Yeah, actually, Gavin's a lot like me, personality-wise. He's a very big personality. He's very confident. He's very intelligent, so I expected him to like be really like dominant in the right, and kind of like use his veto power whenever necessary or whenever he wanted. And he was actually a very like calm, laid-back co-writer. When he felt strongly, he said he felt strongly. I felt strongly, he was like considerate of that, and which, not to say he's not a considerate person. I just really expected him to like come in and run the right, and he instead did exactly what we all try to learn how to do, and he did very well. Is let all three writers have their influence on the song, and he did. I mean, there's so much Gavin all over this song, but that can only happen if it happens the right way. And so my DNA is all over the song. Ross Copperman, you can hear, especially in a lot of the production. I mean, Ross really started forming the sound of the song from the beginning. So I guess the surprising thing is Gavin's hasn't been writing with a ton of country artists in Nashville, and he fell right into that situation like comfortably and helped us create something really special.
That's awesome. We have to talk about the title, Ticket to LA, because I think it's probably something you do quite frequently now that you live in Nashville, or that you just spend like 300 days a year on the road.
Yeah, Ticket to LA it's the title track for a lot of reasons. It's one of my favorite songs on the record. We wrote a song about meeting a girl in an airport. It's a cute little story, but basically the guy sees the girl sitting under a prompter that says Los Angeles, and it says delayed. And he's not even on that flight, but he sees that he's got her kind of held captive for X amount of time, and so he uses that to his advantage. And so that we wrote that song, we really liked it. Actually, the chorus is she's flying from JFK to LA.
Really?
In the song, yeah. And so I love the song already, and you're trying, the first record was just self-titled. And so you're trying to come up with a title, and is it one of your songs, or is it something completely vague? And it just came from the label. They sent over the idea to name it Ticket to LA, and one of the things they said for their reasoning was just like, I mean, how many tickets to LA do you buy on a like that's where all my friends and family are? And I was like, you're right. When I'm not on the road, yeah, when I'm not on the road, I'm flying home. So how much of my life are tickets to Los Angeles? And so there were so many reasons why it worked, and again, it is one of my favorite songs on the record too. And it was another excuse to go back and shoot in Southern California. So I got to go home for that too. So yeah.
There are 13 songs on this record. You have written 10 of them. You had like an equally staggering stat with On Brett Young. I think it was 11 out of 12. Did you anticipate writing all of the songs on this record, or the majority of them? Or did it just happen that you were just writing autobiographical things where you said, I kind of have to say it myself?
Yeah, so I try to always make sure the best song wins, whether I wrote it or not. I'd obviously prefer for them to be my songs. In a perfect world, I'd write the whole record. But on the first record, I didn't write a song called Making Me Say. That was the one I didn't write. But I didn't have anything that sounded like that. And I wanted it really bad. And so I spent a couple of weeks with it, making sure that lyrically it was said in a way that I would say it. And after a couple of weeks, I felt comfortable with that. I still want it to sound like my voice, And same thing with this record. The 3 outside songs that I took, I had my version of that song already slated for the record. And I just felt like these writers did it better than I did it. And I don't want to be so stubborn about being the writer that the record is sacrificed. And so there were just, being that the first record had success, I was getting pitched better songs than I did last time. And there were 3 songs that just really beat mine. And I feel like best song wins has to be the way to go.
When you are listening to a song, I mean, what makes it feel authentic? Is it truly that you just have to listen to it for several weeks and you say, I see myself in it? Or is there something that you really need? It needs to have a certain structure, it needs to have a certain sound, it needs to have a certain like moral center, or anything like that?
A couple things make me want to cut outside songs. Some, or like, I guess the most obvious one is, regardless of all that other stuff, you hear it and you just go, oh my God, I wish I wrote that song. And those ones are immediate. And there's a song on my new record called Change Your Name where I was like, if another artist hears this and holds it before you guys hold this for me, I'm going to freak out. Hold it right now. There are other ones where, like I said, I thought I had that song already and somebody did it better than me. And if I know there's a better version of this song out there, I wouldn't want to put mine out, And then there are the ones that, there's a song on this record that has turned out to be one of my favorite songs on the record. It's called Ship in the Bottle. And the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, that's amazing. I just don't think it's right for me. And then 3 weeks, 4 weeks of listening to it, and I was like, please tell me nobody held that song yet. And we were able to get it, but it took me that long to figure out how I would make that my own. And so there's a handful of different ways how it happens, but at the end of the day, again, it comes back to the song being the best song for that spot on the record.
Awesome. Sally, that's all for me, but I know we have some people who are waiting patiently to ask questions. We'll start here.
Yeah, hi. I'm pretty lyric-driven my whole life, and I said, when I get married, the song for me is going to be Forever's As Far As I'll Go, Alabama. Mm-hmm. And the very first time I played your CD, and I heard, In Case You Didn't Know, I said, see ya, Alabama. There's something about what you do with your voice, how you just paint the pictures. You do the absolute highs of love, like In Case You Didn't Know, and the despair, like Mercy and like I Loved You. Are you conscious of that? That it's like magic. I mean, you just like weave this tale in a way that nobody else can.
Thank you. I think I'm conscious of it. I don't think my intent is to hit the lowest of low. I think my intention is always just absolute honesty, no matter like how uncomfortable that vulnerability might be. Somebody said something to me when I first signed my deal that I almost took offense to, and then as it kind of sunk in, I understood what they were saying to me, and it was basically, this is paraphrased, but it was like, you're a 6'6" ex-athlete. The guys are going to hate you. Male country fans are going to hate you. You need to figure out how to not, like, you can't be that guy. And I went, well, if the songs are honest and the guys can relate to them as well, I think that's the only way to do that. Because otherwise, it's just like any other form of entertainment. Like, you can't connect to half your audience. You have to connect to all of it. And I think what I figured out was that guys have been told their whole life that they can't be that type of vulnerable. But then they're just left without an outlet for it because they're feeling those emotions anyways. And so I just thought, well, why don't I just be okay with openly feeling that way, and hopefully that will be the thing that connects. And in all honesty, I don't really have an option, because if I'm not connected to the song, I don't know how to expect other people to connect to the song. So it turns out that vulnerability is the most honest way for me to do it anyway. So I think it's a little bit conscious, but at the same time, I don't think I would know how to do it any differently.
That was a great answer. We've got another question right over here.
Hello.
Oh, hi, I like your shirt.
Oh, thank you. My question is, watching you over the last 2 years, when you started with the music career after baseball and then looking to where you are now, is how do you wrap your head around the success? I mean, obviously it's probably more than you ever thought possible, but when you look at what made you change, from the baseball injury to music to now, what did you think, or what were your goals, what were you hoping for compared to now, to see how you have just skyrocketed?
That's an interesting one, because there's not, if you're lucky enough to have success, it starts moving so fast that either there's not time, or you forget to like stop and look back on it and appreciate it. And so that's one of the things I have to remind myself all the time, is like, stop and take a breath, because this is really cool. But I think I came into it without any expectations, but with one really big goal, and it was, to me, it seemed right because it seemed attainable, and it also seemed like enough to make me happy, and that was just that if I can do something that I love this much for a living and put food on the table, then I'm super blessed, and that's not a lot of people even get to do that, but the fact that the first record had the success that it did, and that we're here talking about a second record already with the track record that we had with the first one. I wouldn't have even known how to dream that big about this career, in all honesty. And so I think it sinks in a little bit at a time because we are so busy. But I literally am living my dream right now.
It's just under 2 years ago, the first time I met you in Detroit, and you and Jay were just stressing over Sleep Without You, not quite in the top 20 at that point, I think, or no, you were in the top 20, but it was, and to see how far you've come since then, it's, in the 2 years, it's just congratulations on all your success.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Well, Brett, thank you so much for being here. You guys, Ticket to LA is out December 7th. He's got tour dates. He's got singles. Just stay in touch.
Come see me. Thanks, you guys.